welcome back to Mixed Story Time, and welcome back from your Thanksgiving break. I hope you had a wonderful holiday. Well, speaking of holidays, we are really now in the holiday season, aren't we? We are coming upon our holiday season, and you might have noticed I have something on the top of my head. I do. I have a special elf hat. Now, you might be wondering why I'm wearing an elf hat. Well, it's because of the holiday season. Now, at St. Mary's at this time of the year, we not only celebrate lots of holidays that are happening, we also celebrate the virtue of kindness. Now, do you know what it means to be kind? Did you say, doing things for others without expecting anything in return? Did you just say that? Because that's what it is. That's what kindness is. Kindness is doing for others without expecting anything in return. Have you ever been kind? I bet you have. Well, ladies, this week we're going to be talking about a book, and it's called The Elves and the Shoemaker. And that is one of the reasons why I have this elf hat on today, because of this story, The Elves and the Shoemaker. Now, do you know what a shoemaker is? Yes, a shoemaker is somebody who makes shoes. Who makes shoes from scratch, which means from raw materials, like from leather. This shoemaker made shoes from leather and nails, and he needed a hammer and nails and leather to put the shoes together. He made them from scratch. We call from scratch. You friends probably go to the store and buy your shoes, but a long time ago there were shoemakers that made shoes, and people went to the shoemaker to buy their shoes. They didn't go to the department store or the shoe store. They went to a shoemaker, okay? Well, we're going to find out in this story how the shoemaker, kindness was shown to the shoemaker, and how the shoemaker showed kindness back. Okay, well, let's find out. The Elves and the Shoemaker. It's a retold story by the Brothers Grimm, and the pictures are by Jim LaMarche. The illustrator is Jim LaMarche. The Elves and the Shoemaker. A good shoemaker who, though had a spell of bad luck, he had become very poor, which means he didn't have very much money to buy the things he needed. Finally, had just enough leather to make one last pair of shoes, so he needed leather to make his shoes. Still, it is a fine piece of leather, said his wife, as soft as butter, yet as strong as your hands. Tonight, dear wife, I will cut the leather, said the shoemaker, and the first thing in the morning I will sew the shoes. So one last piece of leather to sew the shoes together and make one last pair. The next morning, when the couple went into the workshop, they were flabbergasted, which means they were so surprised. They were so surprised by what they found. There, on the work table, stood 2 shoes, perfectly finished, not a stitch out of place. But who? How? Sputtered the shoemaker. His wife could only stare. Just then a dandy gentleman came into the shop. What magnificent shoes! Please, I must try 'em on, he said. The shoes fit perfectly. It was as though they'd been made just for him. He was so pleased that he paid double the price. Now the shoemaker had enough money to buy leather for 2 more pair of shoes. Wow, girls, who made the shoes? The shoemaker didn't make it. Who did it? Again, that evening, the shoemaker cut out the leather for the shoes and went to bed. And once again, in the morning, there were the shoes, finished! Buyers were not lacking for these either, and as before, they were so pleased they paid double the price. Now the shoemaker had enough money to buy leather for 4 more pair of shoes. The next morning, just as before, the shoes were already made. So each morning, when the shoemaker woke up, somebody had made the shoes for him. And then friends came and bought them. And then he had money to make more. On and on it went. Whatever the shoemaker cut out in the evening, it was finished by the morning. Soon the news of the splendid shoes spread throughout the town, and the shoemaker and his wife were no longer poor. Somebody is helping out that shoemaker. Somebody is being very kind. One evening, not long before Christmas, as the shoemaker cut more leather for shoes, his wife spoke. "Dear husband, who has made us so rich? What if we were to stay up tonight to see who comes into our shop?" The shoemaker agreed, so that night they lit a small lamp in the hall and they hid behind their coats and waited. And as the clock struck midnight, they heard the creak of a window and the scuttle of small feet. Peeking out from behind the coats, they saw two tiny children sneak into the workshop. They were poorly dressed and they wore only raggedy sacks for warmth. "Elves!" the shoemaker's wife whispered. Elves! They were little elves that were coming in his workshop. They were the friends that were helping the shoemaker all this time. Were coming in the middle of the night and doing his shoes. The tiny elves tiptoed across the room and climbed up onto the table. And then humming and whistling, they began to stitch and sew and hammer so quickly with their little fingers that the shoemaker and his wife could not believe their eyes. Look, and there they are, working away. Working, working, working. The elves did not stop until all the shoes were finished and stood lined up on the table. Sturdy riding boots, delicate slippers, feather-light dancing shoes, and heavy clogs for work. And then the elves tiptoed out of the workshop, up to the stairs, and out the window. So they did this for the shoemaker every night. Wasn't that kind? And they never got anything in return until, let's find out. The next morning, the wife said, "The little elves had made us rich. We must give them something in return. They run around with so little on, they must be freezing. I will make them a warm dress, a coat and pants, and knit them each a pair of stockings. And I shall be happy to make them each a pair of fine shoes," said the shoemaker. They went right to work, and that evening they laid the presents on the work table. Then, like before, they hid behind the coats and they waited. Okay, so the shoemaker and his wife are thanking the elves by making them some brand new clothes and some brand new shoes. At midnight, the elves quickly slipped into the shop, ready for another night's work. But instead of pieces of leather, they found the beautiful presents. Look, they found them. Do you think they look happy? I think they do. At first, they were too astonished to move. They were flabbergasted too, right? They were so surprised. And they hugged their new warm clothes and quickly put them on. Wouldn't you be surprised too? Yes, you would. They were so happy. And when they were dressed, they leaped and bounded around the room singing, "Now we're elves so fine to see, no longer cobblers we will be." And they jumped over chairs and raced around the shop and finally ran out the door. The click and the clack of their new shoes echoed through the streets. Click, clack, click, clack, click, clack. And from that on, the little elves were not seen again, but the shoemaker and his wife lived a long and happy life. So those little elves did something so kind for the shoemaker, didn't they? They weren't expecting anything in return, but the shoemaker and his wife thought, these little elves have helped us, and we're not poor anymore, we have plenty, and we need to help them out. And so they did. So they showed kindness back. So let's think about it this time of the year. Let's think how we can be kind, doing for others without expecting anything back in return. All right, girls, until next time, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.